Malaysia has been an upper middle income country since 1996. 30 years on, we still haven't achieved high income status.
But that has not been happening and make it very hard for us to transition into a high income nation.
Is it a question of government policy, industry, attitudes, or something deeper? Stay tuned on Decimal Point. For decades, Malaysia's economy has developed steadily, yet our growth has not quite reached its full potential, even with abundant natural resources and a skilled multilingual workforce. Meanwhile, economies in the region, like Taiwan and South Korea, have surged ahead at a much faster pace. Why is Malaysia still trapped in the middle? Malaysia has been classified as an upper middle income country since 1996, and it's been nearly 30 years now. In simple terms, why has it been so difficult to make that final leap to high income status?
It does goes down into the structural effect of our economic structure as well. Traditionally, Malaysia do subsidize a lot on the manufacturing sectors. This will make us more competitive in the global market itself. However, this does come in pros and cons. The pros will be, we are more competitive in the global level, but the cons will be is suppressing our local wages as well. In theory, the subsidies is a means for the local manufacturers to subsidize their products, lower their costs, so that the additional funds can go into innovations. But has not been happening because due to human natures, we tend to resort into risk mitigating and try to take shortcut as well. So you see that there's a cycle whereby subsidies, the skills are not upscaled enough due to lack of innovations and make it very hard for us to transition into a high income nation.
Now, South Korea and Malaysia had almost identical per capita income back in 1981. But ever since then, South Korea has been earning 3 times more as compared to Malaysia. What has Malaysia been doing wrong?
Wow, South Korea is an interesting story. I think we used to be their mentors. In 1960s, actually, delegates from South Korea came to Malaysia to learn about how to manage the feudal management. And they went back and started their own new village movement in the 1970s. And of course, in the 1970s, they have this the miracle of the Han River movement, where they push very aggressively, try to move away from imitation into innovations. With the help of chaebol-led policies, they pump a lot of money into R&D and do a lot of innovations, and our path diverges from there since then. And of course, during the early 2000s, we have the rise of K-pop, also further cement them and publicize them as a lead innovator in the eye of the world. So of course, nowadays people might say that the chaebol-led economies might bring in some of the potential problems, such as wealth gap been getting bigger in South Korea, but it's still a very fascinating story to tell. As for Malaysia, we are still very much comfortable in assembling items for other nations. I think we miss out the chance to move into the upper value chain when we have the chance. Because of, if we just only rely on the private sectors to pull in the money for R&D, is definitely not enough. I think what we can learn from the South Korea will be we need a very sort of like a militarized approach in the government fundings in pushing for R&D so that we can do more in the innovation side of things. From an additional note, some would argue that the 1997-1998 Asian financial crisis actually crippled our chance to move into the upper value chain. We still remember that during that time, our Proton bought up Lotus, and we have the Commonwealth Games and also the MSC project that did not materialize during that time. But what I want to say is that the South Korea actually hit harder than us during the financial crisis as well. So this is something that we definitely need to ponder upon.
Dr. Goh, if I may interrupt, you mentioned this term chaebol. What does that mean and how does that relate to the South Korean economy?
Chaebol are family-based, many generations. They hold a lot of resources, and through their business prowess, they make their business grow so big. They are very influential in the local economies. So, and they are invited into policy makings, and also they are able to sort of give very good feedback on the economic policy. So this is why during the 70s and 60s, they are invited to consolidate their ideas and put it into the become part of the miracle of the Han Rivers. They also understand that innovations can bring them out of poverty, and they have a very disciplined approach in putting in monies into driving innovations.
Doctor, you brought up a very important point here, dependence. Economists have pointed out that our over-reliance on multinational companies and also the fact that we have weak local companies because of our over-reliance on FDI, that could also result in us not bringing up our own homegrown champions. Could this be the problem?
Yes, there's a very argument saying that FDI actually will make us complacent, especially at the innovation side of things. When the foreign investment came to Malaysia, maybe due to affordable resources, utilities, and even labor as well. However, most of the time, local industries might settle into a situation whereby they just want to imitate rather than innovate themselves. So you see that when this cycle happens, it definitely shows that we are quite comfortable, quite content on as long as the FDI is coming in. The second point will be, if we look at the true innovations, I think we really should make a change of heart when we look at the innovation as well. If we look at R&D, the first thing coming to our mind will be mostly on how to make better lasers, make better satellites, even AI as well. But in the 21st century, I would say that innovations also need to focus on multidisciplinary approach. How to make a product out of the lab itself is equally important as well. Definitely a multidisciplinary approach will be needed for us to drive innovations. A good scientist might not be a good communicator, sorry to say, and you definitely need a lot of people maybe in the marketing as well, social science people to move in so that we can push our product out of the experimental stage into the market to compete with the world. How fast we can transition into a high value and high tech based type of industries. We need to do fast and aggressive and maintain the discipline to do so.
From foreign investment to brain drain, Malaysia's economic story raises bigger questions about its long-term direction. For example, what exactly is our competitive advantage? Brain drain has been bleeding Malaysia of its most talented people. How serious is this to our economic ambition? And are our current efforts enough to retain our talents?
Yes, it's a serious concern. If we keep losing out our skilled laborers and top professionals, we are losing out the opportunity to innovate ourselves because talents are the driving force for innovations. A common observation from the industry will be if a company have branches in, let's say, Singapore, Australia, or even in the Middle East, a lot of our local talents will at least try to maybe transfer to those branches in the name of better exchange rate or even higher efficiency working culture over there as well. So that's the biggest problem that we need to overcome in at least in a very, very near future. Mao, I think that raising the salary is one way to keep our talent. Of course, we do have some talent retention program in Malaysia as well. 21st century requires a 21st century solution as well. Right? If let's say that overseas Malaysians cannot physically present in Malaysia, we should find a way to make them contribute remotely rather than attend physically. I think there are some success, moderate success through the program from government agencies such as Talent Corp over there. So we hope that in the future there will be more overseas Malaysians that are able to contribute remotely. I think this will help elevate into the innovation side of things for Malaysia.
Now we have a plan, the 13th Malaysian Plan, where we aim to become a high-income nation by 2030. That's about less than 4 years from now. Do you think that's realistic?
Well, at first, I think that we need to understand that in order to have a healthy economic development, the gist will be strengthen the middle class. Right? For example, 1,000 millionaires, they might buy 2,000 cars, so everyone buy 2 cars, right? But 1 billionaire definitely will not buy 2,000 cars. So the essence will be strengthening the middle class group in a society. So of course, it will feel very much aspirational as well. But a bigger problem we need to look into whether this high income status actually benefit the rakyat will be look at the disposable income, right? I think the inflation problem is a invisible hand that choking our middle class. Recently, we pay a lot of taxes and our spending power been diminishing rapidly over the past few years. Of course, achieving the high income status will be crucial, but some would argue that actually a better reflect of the actual spending power and also the economic will be through a disposable income index. But that is another discussions. So this is why I think that we don't just look at the absolute number itself, right? We also need to take into considerations of the inflation's geopolitical risk as well, as this will further diminish the spending power of the people. Therefore, we should have a more holistic view on how to achieve a true high-income nation in this sense. The second point will be, I think Malaysians do have our fair share of slogans in our past. I still remember we have this Wawasan 2020. We metaphorically expect that there will be flying cars like in the movies or Back to the Future when it's 2020. Of course, we do have like smartphones and ubiquitous internet accessibilities nowadays, but we're still missing out on the key economic indicators of moving up into a high-income nation in this sense. Of course, I'm quite an optimist. I think that our current policies such as the 13th Malaysian Plan, the NSS, the National Semiconductor Strategies, and our NIMP 2030, they have a clear goal on what we want to do, what we want to move forward in terms as a nation to elevate our economy. Of course, the bigger concern will be whether we have the discipline to stay on course and be focused on reaching out all the indicators being mentioned in all the policies I just mentioned just now. But in terms of policy-wise, I'm quite optimistic that it's possible we will achieve most of the target being set by those policies.
Yeah, that's great. But Malaysia is also betting heavily on AI, semiconductors, and also clean energy as an escape route. But these sectors are where global competition is fierce. Does Malaysia have a competitive advantage, and is it strong enough?
Yeah, we have to agree that Malaysia is having a very high CP value, cost performance value for foreign investors. We have relatively affordable talent, resources and utilities as well. I think our strength is rely on how fast we can transition from a very labor-intensive approach in our industry into a high-value and high-tech-based type of industries. This will be something that we need to do fast and aggressive and maintain the discipline to do so. As for the three industries being identified to springboard our Malaysian economy, first, the semiconductor. I think Malaysia doing quite well in the testing, packaging, and assembling of the semiconductors. The next question will be whether we can move into the advanced packaging sectors so that we can be the leaders for these particular industries. If we can transition into a leader for this particular part of the semiconductor industry, this will be a very strong position for us to move forward. And as for the AI, yes, I think Malaysia also need to move beyond just the buzzword for AI, like to really understand beyond putting a few prompts on ChatGPT and writing emails and move towards the AI infrastructure buildings, like such as how to build the server rack, how to build a local network, and build a sovereign AI that we can have a total control, and how we market the AI into our daily usage. This will be the key factor as well. As far as for clean energy, of course, due to Malaysia is not a very big country, if we want to develop a large-scale wind farm or even hydroelectric powers, do come with environmental concern as well. How are you going to gather the land for all this clean energy? But we are a country very near to the equator. I think that solar energy is a way that we can explore. And in fact, I think that the cost for installing solar panels has gone quite affordable nowadays. It definitely we are seeing that it can be applied more in the industries and also in the daily use as well. So I feel that if we play our cards well in these three industries, focusing on upgrading our skills, innovations, this will be a best way for us to elevate our economy. If we want to go for the semiconductor route, go all out. If we want to go for the AI development, go all out as well.
Malaysia is a key hub for semiconductors, electrical and electronics exports with a trade surplus that has run for years. Yet, despite these advantages, why has Malaysia not transitioned into high income status or fully developed economy? Dr. Goh, regional income disparity is listed as one of the 4 structural barriers to escape the trap. States like Sabah and Sarawak is, far behind as compared to the national average. Can Malaysia still call itself a high-income nation when large parts of the country are still left behind?
Absolutely not. If we have pockets of areas that have very, very low income compared to the big cities, we can't truly say that we have entered a high income as a nation. This comes with several problems as well. If we have a lot of maybe suburban or rural places that have very, very low income, we risk of losing people in that particular area as well. Then they will move into maybe economic clusters such as the Klang Valley, Penang, or even Singapore as well to search for jobs. Losing population in those areas will be detrimental to their economic development. It's very important that we have to at least come up with a framework to develop those areas so that at least the distance of the economic development will not be too far away from the big cities such as Kuala Lumpur in this sense. If we do not address this, when more people move towards into Kuala Lumpur per se, it actually creates a stress on the amenities and also the public services in those big areas as well. It also may create a lot of social problems in the future if we don't address this problem properly. So it's definitely that we need to develop places maybe such as Sabah and Sarawak so that they can retain their own talent to develop their own industries. I can give you some examples and also some success stories. In China, they have this Taobao village. Through the usage of technology, e-commerce and internet, they are actually able to find a niche industry that are able to develop locally. And since this kind of industry performs so well, they are able to retain their population there. They create a lot of local jobs for the local as well. And also they able to attract people that already moved to the big cities to come back to the locals to venture into those industries. I think that Sabah, Sarawak and maybe the east coast of Malaysia as well, we do have a lot of very niche, very interesting industries for us to venture to so that they can develop a local economy there. The second point I would like to make will be Malaysia, we proud ourselves that we have a lot of heritage, a lot of cultural factors, X factors for tourism. If you look at the success stories in Penang and Malacca as well, it seems like yes, we are able to monetize based on our cultural and heritage value in this sense. I can see that we still have a lot of untapped potentials in Sabah, Sarawak and East Coast area that can able to mimic this kind of like framework to push for tourism as well. So in a modern context, tourism should move beyond just selling souvenirs and also the eateries. If you're able to upgrade or even renovate your old shop house into, let's say, a boutique hotels, they create a lot of jobs already. Digital marketers, artists, and also service industries. It's time for us to look into how we monetize based on our heritage values so that we can further develop our local economies. Of course, there will be no 100% that a country will have a very homogeneous economic situation whereby everywhere will have a same level of economic development. The big cities will always have some advantage over the suburban or rural areas. But through this kind of the good use of technology, I feel that we can at least close the gap between the rural areas and also the urban areas in terms of economic development.
Earlier you mentioned about troubles in South Korea. For example, we have Samsung, we have LG if I'm not mistaken. In Taiwan we have TSMC, and these are global brands that we have in these countries, right? But Malaysia has yet to build a giant manufacturing industry, a giant manufacturing company. Is it too late for Malaysia to start one, or should we use a different model altogether?
But first, Taiwan is a fascinating example as well. In fact, if we look at our semiconductor ambitions, actually Malaysia start earlier than Taiwan. We have our semiconductor ambitions start in 1971, and we already have Intel semiconductor plant in Bayan Lepas in 1972. If you look at Taiwan, they actually start their semiconductor ambition in 1973. But if you look at nowadays, all the advanced chip that designed for AI is actually made by Taiwan. All right, we are very, very far behind in terms of like semiconductor manufacturing and the whole supply chain. How the Taiwanese did that is through sheer discipline as well, through a lot of determinations, and highly adaptable to the global changes when it comes to the demand and the intricacy for the semiconductors. Now they become a very, very powerful in the sense of like semiconductor manufacturing. Taiwan and South Korea, they have the discipline to be focused and a very ruthless, aggressive focus on the R&D so that they can push for innovation in this sense. As for the case of Malaysia, I think that we definitely need to have a very, very deep reflections. Of course, we are not a very, very big countries. We have our limitation as well. So my suggestions will be we need to be strategically focused on what we need to do well in maybe the next 5 or 10 years. If we want to go for the semiconductor route, go all out. If we want to go for the AI development, go all out as well. And also, if we want to go for the clean energy, why not? The key terms here will be discipline and also the focus. And also, there's no shame that we try to foster innovation to our traditional strong suits, like such as the oil and gas industries and also the palm oil industries. Yeah, the key thing here will be, I think that if we focus on what we do and what we do well, I think definitely we will have a breakthrough that can elevate our economy to a high-income nation that we so aspire of.
Known as a trading nation, Malaysia already has strong economic building blocks, deeply integrated into global supply chains. But the challenge remains to raise wages and to finally break out of the middle income trap. Both the government and the private sector must look beyond shortcuts and focus on building the foundations of long-term growth. Join us next time as we connect the dots on Decimal Point.